Are people still coming in?
People will probably drift in
Okay.
in 2 minutes, but I'll just leave that door open, and I'm just gonna tell everybody a
Okay.
couple of things really quick.
Okay. Good.
Really fast. Hello, I'm Kelly Haley. I'm a reference librarian here at FPL, and I was just trying to remember how long Orlo has been doing sustainable living programs here that I was involved with, and I can't remember if it was 2007 or 2010. It's been a really long time. And I'm very grateful that he still comes back and shares all this knowledge with us. I left some program evaluation forms in your seats, and there's also another sheet from Orlo. The evaluation forms, if you would fill those out and drop them, just lay them on that back table on your way out or something, I would really appreciate it. We love having your feedback. Orlo has been practicing sustainable living for a very long time, walking the walk and talking the talk, and we're running a little late because traffic is the worst. So I'm going to get off the podium and let him do his thing. Please help me welcome Orlo Stitt.
Good. We're running a little late getting started here, but I guess that's normal. Good to see the people here, and I think you'll find that this program is really, at least it was for me, motivating, at least the things that we'll first review, and then we'll move on. The thing I hope to take, for you to take with you, is something that you'll remember, and not only remember, but do something about. And it's been my career. We've been in business in Rogers 46 years. Patty Gross back here was one of our very first customers. And her husband, Roger, the late Roger Gross, we're sad to say that he's not with us, but on the other hand, we are pleased to have people, not only the ones that are here, but the ones that aren't here. So I mentioned that what you remember and so forth, but I think with the whole concept of clean energy, it's something that we all need to remember and, like I said, do something about. And there are a lot of things that we can do something about. But after I came back from Anaheim, California, just the first part of this month, I was so pumped up. I mean, I just couldn't hardly sleep. There are so many things happening. And so we're going to talk about that, give you a quick tour of it. We spent 3 days there, walked 21 miles, according to my Fitbit. And we saw every booth, but I'm sad to say that we couldn't spend a lot of time in all of them. But there were so many that were. And there's the trends, and it's a movement. So let's get started. Written there in highlights is to motivate you and to tell you some things that motivated me. And in your brochure, and the brochure is an integral part of what we're presenting. Laura, with Laura's help, but really more Laura and what she did, we condensed it down, got it on the front and back page, and then we listed it. But if you follow along with the handout, you'll get more out of the program. There's 3 parts to the program. The first one, like I mentioned, is a tour. The second one are things that happened in my life. And I hate to say it, the first thing that really got me going on clean energy was 61 years ago. I was 3 years old then. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, moving forward, I was 12 years old. And so, but first of all, before we get into that, we'll take the tour, and I hope you can somehow be as excited about it as I was, because there's all kinds of new things and all that kind of things that I see as solutions for what we've been doing. So it used to be, Solar Power International. And the first time we went, David and I went to a conference by Solar Power International, which is now Renewable Energy Plus, RE Plus. It was in Austin, Texas. And the whole display in Austin, Texas would have fit into this room, and we probably would have had plenty of elbow room. And that was 20 years ago. They are celebrating their 20th anniversary this year. So here we are in front of the Anaheim Convention Center, and we'll tell you more about that. There were three of us, David, my son, who's running our company, and Michael, who is in Austin, Texas, and he is very much into computers and software and artificial intelligence, and makes my head spin, and probably most everybody else. But he was so interested in the software related to clean energy and all of the things that facilitate the expansion that he came along too. So it was a great day. Fortunately or unfortunately, I had another birthday, and we celebrated around the dinner table and got a free dessert, which is always fun. But the three of us guys, had a wonderful time when we got started. So that was the convention center. I couldn't help but notice when we got there and we were walking around how many solar panels there are all through the area. Now, it's a busy area because Disney World is there, the Crystal Cathedral's there, there's ocean front, there are lots of houses, and I won't tell you how much they cost because it'll make you cry, but anyway, there are solar panels, and much of the power in California is now being powered with clean energy. There's an arena or an auditorium, whichever it was, not only outside around the arena and but inside too, there were displays. There were 13, and I'll go through that, 13 major big expo halls in the complex, but the hotels around also had places, their ballrooms to have exhibits, and they were all full. They were full. They were just everywhere, and nobody could put any other exhibits in. It was that full. So the display coming up, this is a dual axis tracking system, and it was there set up and working. It not only tracks morning to evening, in other words, it knows when morning is and evening, but it also tracks the seasons in terms of whether it's this way for the summer or this way for the winter. Very efficient, 44% more efficient than a regular stationary tracking system. And then you say, what in the world? It was huge. You can see people there, and it was probably 4 stories high. And then I said, what is it that's working? So I talked to the guy, and it's a little crystal, and the crystal is exposed to the sun. And somehow that crystal reflects light in a different way. And by electricity, by solar power, it accurately tracks the sun all year round, summer, winter, morning, evening. All kinds of new electric cars. Practically every manufacturer of cars, now Honda, they were holding back. We'll do hybrids, but we won't do electric cars. And then they moved on. Same way with Toyota. Toyota has a new electric car. You see on the streets walking around, electric cars everywhere. Probably 2 out of every 5 cars are electric. And then there's the Cybertruck. People seen a Cybertruck on the highway? Yeah. At first sight, they're ugly, but on the other hand, maybe the function of them is more real. Stainless steel. I guess custom-wise, you could have them painted, but the tires are 20-inch tires and rugged that thick and all kinds of things. And you open it up and there's lots of storage room and there's lots of places to sit. So that was kind of exciting to see one and even sit in it. Charging stations, smaller charging stations, in addition to the Tesla superchargers. There are other chargers for delivery trucks, for school buses, for all kinds of different vehicles that are running on electricity. And a truck powered with fuel cells. And fuel cells are really burning hydrogen. You stick two probes, one positive and negative, and somehow you can get hydrogen off. You collect it, and now you can put it in tanks, like storage tanks or tanks that can be transported. You can save it for a cloudy day. You can save it for the night. You can carry it with you on your trucks. And what is the combustion product after you burn hydrogen? Water. Yay. The cleanest power you can get. And it can be adapted to big trucks, and they're now working with airplanes. They're now working on ships. If you can put it in like a cylinder of propane, you can power whatever you want to with it. The brand that was just on the screen, I was not familiar with, but when it comes to Kenworth and Toyota, it's very common truck name, and they're now beginning to comply with California code that trucks have to burn hydrogen, and progressively more and more trucks have to burn hydrogen. It will move across the country, and that's part of what's exciting, is that this technology has been brought together. Interestingly, Toyota, which is part of this partnership, has given approximately 30 patents to society for the benefit of the challenge of clean energy and the whole phenomena of weather trends, call it that. If you're a camper and have a nice trailer to pull and to vacation and relax in, you can now put an amorphous or pliable and a very high efficiency, 550 watts per relatively small space on your travel trailer. And even when you're traveling, you can charge your batteries and use it for electricity. There's a solar panel. It was outside display, and underneath it are sheep. And farmers don't like to take all their land out of their farm. It's what they've been farming, and now it's solar, and golly, it's nice to have that electricity, but they would also like to use it some way else. Wind turbines, for example, you can farm all the way around it, but solar farms take up, at least in the past, have taken up the whole ground. So here they are grazing sheep on a relatively low ground mount solar system. And if you want a little higher solar system, you can graze cattle. They've had trouble with goats because goats like to paw and even eat the insulation off the wires. So goats are kind of a problem. But anyway, last summer, I went to a seminar at Golden, Colorado, and not Golden, anyway, in Colorado. is just outside of Denver. And the whole establishment, prompted by Colorado State University, are researching what plants grow well underneath solar panels. And they found that they're stationary. Golly, you can't do much with them. But now they've found if they just have a single axis rotation to the solar panels, part of it gets the sun in the morning and part of it in the afternoon, and it gets water if it rains in the morning, and it gets water and it rains in the afternoon. Or they can even irrigate it, and they're working on that to irrigate appropriately based on the mounting systems in the fields, so that they can raise very successfully the crops that they want to, and they can. So that's a way for farmers to use their ground and yet generate electricity from solar. Here's a little sign, solar grazing, that was on one of the displays, and they actually had those cattle there. Here's how they mount and how they operate a morning to evening or east to west mounting system. It's very simple. The little cylinder that you see there, see the black cylinder? It captures solar energy, and by weight, it vaporizes the fluid inside and sends it to the other side, and slowly the panels rotate. No real mechanism to it, at least not electricity or so forth. So this is a trend, east to west, single axis, and we're seeing now that that's happening in other places, not just Colorado. Boulder is the town I'm trying to think of. Solar flower, I bet some of them, I see Cameron shaking his head. Solar flower, it opens in the morning, it closes at night. Probably a property owners association wouldn't let it be in the front yard, but maybe this, quote, flower would be in the side yard or the backyard. But it is high efficiency, it generates electricity, and for some people with limited space, it's a solution. Racking underneath, racking on top so you can have parking underneath. The people had nice shade in their outdoor display, but also something that caught my fancy, if you have a roadside park or a rest stop on the highway, you can put a shelter over the picnic tables, generate electricity for the establishment of whatever is there for the rest area. Now, up until now on this tour, we've been outside. Now we're going to go inside, and this is a map of the display. You can see one to the left, 4 across, 2 out front, another little smaller one to the right, one to the center, and that's the arena that was full of solar exhibits. Actually, they had a little race car in there, and all the race cars were about this long and about this high. And there were racing cars, and those cars were all powered with hydrogen. It was really fun to watch. And they had little, like, mouses, like a computer game. And you could watch the people try to get their car in front, and just like a regular car, but anyway. Here is an example of the display on 2 of the halls. And you can see a list to the right. Can't read it, I'm sure, but all the exhibits that were there. And like I said before, when you walk through these exhibits, you're overwhelmed. The crowd was bumper to bumper, elbow to elbow. People were so excited, and some of the displays you had to wait. You had to just wiggle yourself up to get to talk to someone. The excitement by the people attending and the people enthusiastic about whatever they were seeing was really motivating to me. Building America's energy future. That was the theme, and down the aisles, that sign was seen commonly. Like I said, people from essentially every country. One lady who spoke very good English walked up to me and she said, "I'd like to talk to you if you don't mind." And I thought, well, okay, this is a kind of an accent. She couldn't weigh more than 80 pounds, very tiny lady from China. And I talked to her for 20 or so minutes. She wanted to know all about what to do, and I started thinking, am I giving away secrets or whatever? But no, sure. I think we have to see this as the whole world working together, and the more we can do it, the better. Storage, that's a hot topic, particularly here in Arkansas, because as of 2 days ago, we couldn't put in net metering where you get $1 for $1 this way if you send it back and net meter your meter backwards, or if you use it in your house, it's $1, it's just 1 to 1. Now it's more like 25 cents to $1, and the utility companies take the other 75 cents and they sell it again for $1. Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah. And so we don't think it's quite fair, but really when we started talking about it, and we had a real conversation between David and Michael and myself, I think it's going to be a blessing. I think that we're going to find that we don't need to use the utility company. That batteries, they're coming down in price. You put a battery in the system, and all of a sudden, you don't even have to net meter. You're on the inside, on the house side of the meter. So you don't even have to get a permit. Michelle Housel just got a permit to put her solar batteries on, a solar system on. No batteries, I'm thinking no. But we don't need the utility company to make this profitable, to make it economical. And so just since then, as of 2 months ago, when we knew we couldn't complete all the solar systems that we're putting in, we said, let's promote batteries. And lo and behold, we put in probably 20 batteries in the last 6 weeks. And that's because they knew that after September 30th, they weren't commissioned and approved. They couldn't net meter. Everybody know what net metering means? Anybody not me? Net metering means you can run your meter backwards if you're generating solar electric power, or you can run it front if you need more power because they didn't have enough from sunshine. And it's all somehow recorded within the meters. Well, the utility company, frankly, I was, and now David is, on the board for the Arkansas Advanced Energy Association, AAEA we call it, and the net metering and all the information and so forth. But the utility companies are now concerned, and I like the concern that they're having, is that they don't know how to account for this. Yeah, who is net metering, who is not net metering, how do we know? So it's going to be a major accounting challenge for them to keep track of all this. So storage was a hot topic. Here's one by LG. We all know that brand. Not just 1 or 2 batteries, but a whole bank of batteries. Probably good for a motel or hotel. Or a business, or a car charging station, whatever. It looks like a locker room for a basketball or football team, but it's actually the doors open to batteries. And one of those doors, which one I think it's to the far right, is the inverter and the computer that controls the direction the power goes, whether it's going this way or that way to the battery, because it's DC to AC power, and the more you run it backwards from forwards, from DC to AC or AC to DC, you lose efficiency. So here again, Tesla had a huge display, probably the size of this room, and David right here with the backpack was talking to the trainer that came to visit and train us 2 months ago about. And so now Tesla is in the 18 or so of the batteries that we've sold recently are Tesla batteries. You can combine them, you can add to them, you can do all kinds of things. Tesla probably in the long term, even though Elon Musk may not know it, but I bet he does, he's a pretty smart guy, they're really in the battery business. And what they're going to prosper in the future is batteries, and worldwide. Batteries are going to go everywhere, from the North Arctic to the South Antarctic to Russia and China and wherever. Those batteries are plants 100 acres in size under roof. One was just built in Austin, Texas, and we drove around it. Michael, our son, has toured that building. And in Nevada, they're making them, in California, whatever. Oh, let's go back a bit. To the left, the lower left there, is the Tesla field. And this is for a micro grid, which a microgrid means that a whole town with the border and so forth surrounding, all the facilities within that are on solar, and they're collecting it and using solar power. I went to a conference in Boulder last summer, and the developer had developed 600 houses. In the covenants, they say you have to have an array of solar, not a great big one, but array. You have to have batteries. And not only do you have to have batteries, they're connected to what you might call a subdivision hospitality suite. Only part of it is a battery bank. And then they have a generator beside that, and they're off-grid, 600 houses. We just finished, in fact, we've applied to the Fayetteville Sustainability Award for a house right in Springdale that's off-grid, not connected, period. Westinghouse is doing all kinds of things, and to talk to them and so forth. This is a picture and really a research project, but the research is happening, and things are. They're optimistic that this not only is going to be more efficient, the batteries are not lithium ion, they're something that can be recycled and reused, and it's cost effective, about 65% less than than whatever else. So this is a trend that is really optimistic, not just for a house or a hotel, but for a whole grid. Mounting for water, on water. Real estate's not always available. Real estate is precious, particularly in California and some other places. So if there's any water, standing water that is reliably still going to be standing for a while, they can put a floating array of solar. And here's a system that's been tried and proven, even against high winds. Like I said, Michael, our son, is really into the software about it. And here was a display on screen showing all the things and all the ramifications of what can be done to size, to design, to program, to quote, to figure the installation and schedule the timing. It's just a holistic approach to the software that helps installers like ourselves to get it done on an economic and a reasonable way so that it continues to grow. Now, some of you may know about this. It's in Arkansas. It's between Little Rock and Little Rock and West Memphis. and it's a very large array of solar. As we were getting on the plane, I was sitting on the window seat, and I looked out, and just after we had taken off, as we got into the desert, here was this very large array. We were probably at 40,000 feet or something like that. At the time you looked out, and here's this huge array. And I kept looking, and I saw array after array as we went through. And you think about the desert. What is there? There's sunshine. And that's the reason that it's a desert, because there's so much sunshine and it's so hot. And then you say, well, okay, what if there's water somehow, if you drill it or somehow pipe it there? With all that sunshine, you can make, with solar, hydrogen. We already talked about trucks running on hydrogen and delivery trucks running on hydrogen. So if you have space, area, acreage, you can put a solar farm there, but you might also not have to transport it as wires, which is a major problem, and there's quite a bit of talk at that about transporting the over high wires and high voltage and so forth. So there's other things, other possibilities showing up. But again, we may be looking at a challenge for enough water to do what we want to do, not just carbon power. As written in the handbook, the handout, there are moments that I go back and remember. I've already mentioned a little bit that when I was 12 years old, my scout leader said, as an emergency or survival, you can start a fire with a magnifying glass. Oh my. You just turn it backwards from what you normally could look at it, focus it on some kindling or some whatever, and within minutes, you can have a fire. And that was at 12 years old, the first time I really realized and have remembered since the power of sunshine. Isn't that great? I mean, to think that. Well, there's concentrating solar systems that are being used now. They're not necessarily the most economical, but where space is a problem. So anyway, I remembered that. And then maybe as a carryover, I can't say what I was thinking or doing. When I was in the 8th grade, about 14 years old, I built a box, 2 feet by 3 feet, put 1x4s about this deep, and I put glass on the front side and black metal, sheet metal on the other side, the back side. It was painted black, and I put it on an easel, and then I recorded how much sunshine. But there was also a tube going in the bottom with a little valve on it, and another tube with a valve on it out the top. The first thing I learned is hot air rises, and it goes through there, and you can suck air out, and it's hotter going out than it was coming in. And then I realized that the different angles that you arrange the orientation of the box to makes a difference in how much temperature you get. Remember, there was as written in the handout, there was a candy thermometer with a stem about this long stuck in the side. So I recorded it, put it on another easel, and that was my science fair entry. And I won, got the blue ribbon. Amazing, solar energy. Well, isn't that what a passive solar house is all about? You know, you let the sun in the winter, you keep the sun out in the summer. It ventilates, and you can have a window upstairs and open a window downstairs or a skylight, and lo and behold, you can just by gravity of hot air, which is lighter than cold air, cool your house. But you gotta remember that you're sailing now, not powerboating. That you have to interact, man the rudder, pull the raise the sails, lower the sails, whatever. So at my high school graduation, another significant moment, accomplishment, I received a biology award at my graduation. Didn't think too much about it, but I did recall that I was so enamored and so excited and wanted to know more about the miracle of life and the interaction of living plants and animals and the environment. And that was my biology teacher in the course. I had 2 courses in biology. Noticed that and realized it. And so I don't know if I get awarded every year, but I got a biology award. And I think back on that, about how that affected what I finally did when I moved on into college. My father wanted me to take chemical engineering because I like chemistry and I like math, and that's where the money was, according to my father, which always is a factor, I guess. And so I went 3 years, and then I had elective. I was out of sequence. I had elective in what was then called environmental biology. And it was all about the environment. And the professor of this, who had a degree in biochemistry, and he taught in the biology department, he was so dynamic and he just caught my fancy. And pretty soon I was so wound up in that I said, particularly after going on a field trip, which was required to graduate in chemical engineering, we went to St. Louis, we went to a refinery, and we went to a cement plant, and Mallinckrodt Chemical, and Monsanto, and whatever. Anheuser-Busch, that was last on the tour. So I changed curriculums in my senior year, the fall of my senior term. I changed the curriculum and ended up graduating in botany, which was environmental engineering was not a curriculum at that point, but he arranged for me to graduate in that field. So from that time on, 1963, I knew from that course that I didn't want to be a chemical engineer and that I wanted to do something else. I didn't like refineries, I didn't like whatever, it just didn't seem to fit. So these are 8 principles that Dr. John Dodd expressed to me in that course. And he became my counselor in college, and he guided me all the way through. I remembered him for years after. For every pound, I think I got my thing on, for every pound of carbon, or ton or train load of carbon containing chemicals, when you burn that, and I brought a little coal along, I'm not going to burn it up, but this is a little bit of coal here, 1 pound maybe, let's call it 1 bowl. And it burns, and pretty soon it becomes carbon, but it doesn't stay carbon very long because there's scavengers out there called oxygen. Whoops, the oxygen fell. And sure enough, 1 and then 2 oxygens attached to the carbon. How about that? It's called carbon dioxide. That's what it is. Now let's say if the molecular weight, I'm getting into a little chemistry, of carbon is 12, and this is 16 and this is 16, 1 pound of this makes 44 32, 42, 44 pounds, or moles, or whatever you want to call it. That's in chemistry the way you figure out how much carbon and so forth is yielding into the sky. Now, if you have 1 ton of this, it makes almost 3 tons, given that it's never pure, and there are other units there. So we turn around, and that goes off as a stable, very stable molecule. Carbon monoxide will kill you because it wants your oxygen. It doesn't stay around, carbon monoxide, but carbon dioxide is stable. It just sits there. What does it do? It goes around the Earth and forms an invisible film around planet Earth. So with that teaching to me in that course, I thought, oh my goodness, every train load is 3 train loads. Can you imagine taking carbon dioxide, which you can't even touch and so forth, compacting it and digging holes in the ground to bury it? So for every train load, you have to bury 3 train loads, but you have to compress it or do something. The economics are just unbelievable. How can you bury something you can't even touch, smell? And so that made a really impression. And he described, as a professor, this phenomena. And then I was reading not too long ago about how companies, particularly ExxonMobil in Texas and Louisiana, are digging wells and they're transporting it, maybe because somebody told them they had to, like the government. But I can tell you there's nothing economical that I can imagine, even something novel and unique. There's just no way to gather all that carbon dioxide from all the carbon that's being burned and using it in some practical way. There's no return, there's no practical, you can't sell those wells. You have to dig the well, you have to transport it there. Land's probably a problem, making sure it's there. All the economics and all the overhead to try to make that happen. So people understand that 1 ton means 3 tons, and 1 train load is another train load, and every utility coal burning plant has about 120 cars per day, and it's 110 tons per carload, and all of that goes out, and there's still 220 coal burning generation plants in the United States. Amazing. We're still generating electricity with coal. So Dr. Dodd went on in the miracle about the molecule is very stable, meaning a significant proportion of the CO2 molecules, even 50 years ago, or at the turn of the Industrial Revolution, that those molecules are still in our sky. Still that cloud, invisible cloud. We can't see it, we can't touch it, but it's still there. The graph that I'm going to show you was not Dr. Dodd's. I don't think he had a graph, but maybe he did. The Mauna Loa Observatory in Hawaii probably wasn't even existing. But he had the insight and the chemical background to say, this is going to be a problem in the future. In your handout, and this is 1963. Remember, Exxon had research chemists or applied chemists writing up notes that they found in 1977 saying, we might have a problem with carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And they documented that there was just an incredible amount of carbon dioxide going off in space, and it's still there. So this little thing, and I give credit to Laura back in the back here who works for us, she made up this little infomercial or yes. Anyway, and so you burn, you get carbon dioxide, it goes off in the atmosphere, and then you start thinking about what else can you do with carbon dioxide. And you can plant trees. How do trees do it? What is the process that trees convert carbon dioxide? It's photosynthesis. And photosynthesis is a way of very economically, beautifully returning that carbon dioxide. I was talking to a gentleman the other night who is the executive director for the Illinois River watershed, and he said that they planted, I think, 5,000 trees last year. Wow. And the Northwest Arkansas Regional Planning Commission got $38.3 million from the federal government through the Inflation Reduction Act to green up Northwest Arkansas. And Fort Smith and Rogers, particularly Fayetteville, are just going crazy doing good projects with things. Now, if you compare the economics of trees doing all that sequestering versus mechanical bearing and so forth, there's just no question about it. The most economical way to save carbon dioxide going into the atmosphere is efficiency and conservation. If you don't ever burn it, you don't ever use it, you don't have to dispose of carbon dioxide. So in the handout, there's a second sheet, front and back, of things that you can do just to save or somehow equalize. In the graph, and this is something that, I don't know, how many people watched the debate last night? Wow, most of you. So then you say, immigration is a major concern and a topic of the debate last night. And there was this side and that side. You know, immigration is a problem, we have to admit. There was a program. But when you think why those people are willing to walk 1,000 miles across Mexico, some of them barefooted, to get to America, why do you think that is? Why wouldn't they just stay at home and enjoy life and good eating and so forth? Because their crops have failed, and that's the lower right-hand picture is they're looking for a better life because they can't survive on the life that they're living. CO2 cannot be seen, smelled, tasted, shoveled, placed in cans or dumpsters, or charged for, like a tax, like we pay to dispose of garbage. It is garbage. It's going out in the atmosphere and it's cluttering our society, our atmosphere. It cannot be taxed by weight or by volume, but we think that maybe it can be taxed by what you burn. And there's groups that are politically involved in encouraging the charging, the taxing, if you want to call it, of the burning of fossil fuels. Because CO2 is so stable and stays in the atmosphere like an invisible cloud, it inhibits the passage of heat from the Earth back into the outer atmosphere, and thus causes changes in our climate, or what we now call global warming. Some people are even trying to say that we can't publicize the words global warming. Florida, Arkansas says we don't need that word used in this society. And I think that's a shame. That's a freedom that we must preserve. Explaining the cloud that's over there that's causing climate change. It's invisible, it's up there. A little bit of physics here, the wavelength of the energy, light is a short wave energy, and heat is longer waved. I'm talking about many microns. And light goes through that CO2 cloud, invisible covering of the Earth, not just the United States, it's the whole Earth. And so then we say, gosh, it's going out, the sun's coming in, but the short wave, kind of like low E windows, low emissivity windows, several people are nodding, the light goes through, but the heat doesn't. And some of it goes through, but much of it stays on Earth. And that's what is really the cause of climate change. If you've read and heard the news about Hurricane Helene, probably everybody knows about that. It's hit 5 states, 6 states, and the devastation is incredible. And you can say, we've never had a hurricane like that, and Katrina, we never had one like that. So it's this phenomena that light goes through, heat is like a blanket, invisible blanket, it covers the Earth. Dr. John Dodd said to the class, and there was a small class, only 5 or 6 students, and he said this in 1963, it is going to cause problems on Earth if we keep on burning fossil fuels. That is, I remember so well, and that probably was a turning point. I figured at that point, oh, just give me a year or two and this will all be over. Everybody will understand it and we'll move on. Well, that was 61 years ago, I hate to say it. The miracle process of photosynthesis is a natural way of converting it, and we need to dwell on efficiency, not even having to burn it. Seaweed, even cultivating seaweed and vegetables and grasses and trees. The solution to this global problem are conservation, energy efficiency, reforestation, and clean energy generation. Now, there wasn't any solar in 1963 of significance. Solar water heating, yes. Passive solar, yes, but no solar electric. But his idea of clean energy at the time was waterfalls generating electricity, hydropower, and maybe wind turbines. And but anyway, clean energy was not a common thing, but he said if we keep on doing it, it's going to be a problem. Dr. Dodd concluded that the challenges are education. We all need to teach other people, and we need to share our concern, our knowledge, and so forth. It starts with commitment, and there are a lot of people that I know right here in this crowd who are very committed, and I commend it. And then financing for the transition. And in the debate last night, there was a transition. Well, it's not just going to happen. We can't all drive electric cars. There's going to be a transition. We can't all put solar on. Some of us can't afford it. But financing those things somehow. And the Inflation Reduction Act is the first big step in that transition. Solutions, assurance, and hope. There are tried and proven and more economical solutions. The transition is what is challenging financially. These solutions can be healthier and more enjoyable, not back to the earth and pain and sacrifice. Solutions require commitments, sharing of commitments, information and education, joy and love, caring about other people, caring about your children and your grandchildren, optimism, and appropriate behavior. If you just think about it, it's not going to do anything. You got to do something about it. Got to get going. And it is for the benefit of this and for future generations. I will see, hopefully, progress, but it's my grandchildren and children and grandchildren that will enjoy the prosperity or the challenges. The transition is happening. It is happening. The excitement of that show with 13 display rooms and all kinds of acres and acres of outdoor exhibits mean that things are happening. People are doing something. And that was what was exciting to me. I've always been optimistic for 46 years in business in Rogers that this thing would turn around. And gradually we've seen it turn around. We've had some ups and downs, but the transition is happening. And the people here and the people that can share their knowledge and optimism and commitment are the solution. Save our democracy. Democracy was talked about last night in the debate, was talked about also earlier in the presidential debates. Maintaining our democracy is critical in a transition to a low carbon society and sustainability. Without it, without democracy, the transition will slow without a doubt and very likely reverse. We'll go back to drill, baby, drill, and that's not a compatible solution with the carbon dioxide that we're concerned about, thus combating dangerous climate trends. Maintaining our democracy is critical for all levels of government, from federal to state to local. The solution is to vote to save our democracy, not necessarily Democrat or Republican, not blue, not red, but those people who express philosophically what their values are and what they want to do and what their concerns are about clean energy. So in the handout, just to review, there's a 4-part infographic. Got it right that time, didn't I? And that is, go back and read it. There's a QR code for all those people who do not have my book. It's a free book. You just have to QR scan it and then download it to your computer, and you can read the book. This is the book right here. And interestingly, it'll look just like that on your screen. 242 pages of solutions, of tried and proven evidence, if you want to call it that, of what we can do with focus and action related to combating carbon dioxide. On the second page, front and back, there are 50 ideas of how to save energy. And on the handout, there's also a QR code for an interview with Jennifer Granholm, who's the Secretary of Energy, and her optimism and enthusiasm about what all the government and all the money that they've allocated through different legislation, jointly supported by both parties, and what is happening to it now. So click on that and read and listen to what she had to say. The last section of the talk, and we're just about running on schedule, is 30 to 40 minutes of questions and answers and concerns, things. And I know several people here have been part of it. We have a little green group, Holistically Green, that several of you are here, Dinah and Jennifer, or Michelle, Cameron, my sister, Peggy, and we have a new person here, Caitlin Draper, who is running for the 3rd District of the U.S. House of Representatives. I've talked to her. I've been to several events where she spoke, and I can't say anything more than she deserves our support and our vote. Might be the appropriate thing for her to say a few words.
Can y'all hear me okay? All right. Well, yes, my name's Caitlin Draper. I am a social worker, and I'm a Democrat, and I'm running for U.S. Congress here in the 3rd District. A few things kind of got me interested in running for office. As a clinical social worker, I see my clients suffering all the time, and it's hard to sit across from someone and not know what to do. So I decided policy work was probably the best way forward for me, and I decided to run for office. So very exciting, I'm brand new at it. But another thing is I'm working on starting a family, working on that through IVF. And I've become very worried that there won't really be an earth for my children to grow up in. I live on a little river. It's actually a weird half pond, half river, part of the White River kind of thing. Also, I think sewage goes into it. I'm not really sure what it is. But there's a lot of beautiful animals on our little river pond. Herons and turtles and all of the things. And I'm very worried about the future of biodiversity. One reason why Hurricane Helene was so strong is because our seas and our oceans are warming. And it causes a lot more energy in the hurricane. So it's concerning. Steve Womack, time and time again, votes against legislation that would help our environment, that would help invest in these companies that work to make our area more green and more sustainable. So the Infrastructure and Jobs Act is something that is potentially the greatest piece of climate legislation in our lifetime. I think we can do more. I support, for sure, the new Green Deal. I think that's going to be hard, and that's also scary to say in this district, but I think I'm around like-minded individuals. So, yeah, I think that there's so much we can do to invest in green jobs and in green living. I say that seriously, and I think it's something that right now, if it were up to my opponent, we would be screwed. So it's very important. Any questions for me about either my platform or my stance on the environment? Yes.
I just want to say thank you for sacrificing so much of your life to become a social worker, and then 2, to be in politics. Like,
thank you.
That is an incredibly selfless act, and I admire you greatly for just that.
Thank you so much. That really means a lot. That means a lot. Thank you.
Yay, social workers.
Yay! Yes.
And I love your letter with you, a picture of you going through IVF. That was nervy. That was the bravest thing I've ever seen.
Well, I'll tell you that story. This has been a really challenging race for me, emotionally, physically, all the things. But May of last year, we found out my husband's cancer is back. So he's got stage 4 lymphoma, and we have to go up to Mayo Clinic once a month for about a week and get his chemo treatments. But then I also am going through IVF, like I said. I'll quickly tell this story. I know we're talking about green living here, but I got pregnant for the first time in March through IVF. So excited. It turns out the pregnancy was not viable, and my doctor thought it was ectopic. And I asked my doctor, she's out of state, if I if I go to the ER with symptoms of an ectopic pregnancy, what am I going to do? Are they going to see me? Will I be okay? And my doctor said, I don't know. You should probably get a plan to get out of the state. So yeah, not cool. People are dying because of the reversal of Roe v. Wade, and I can leave the state, but what about the people in my district that can't? So I was getting treatment, and I was doing call time where I call people from all over the country while I was hooked up to an IV, and the nurse was like, "You're ridiculous, and I need to take your picture." So she took a picture while I was doing my stuff. But I do it because I care and because I feel like, for many reasons, not just the issue of Roe, but I feel like climate stuff, this is like an issue, a matter seriously of life and death. And I can't let Wilmette go unopposed, so. Yeah. Well, thank y'all. Thank you for having me, Orlo. I appreciate it, and wonderful to see so many friendly faces.
Thank you, Caitlin. Other questions or comments? Back in the back?
I was recently reading an article that was talking about the longevity of solar panels and all the toxic things that they're constructed of, and how at the end of a solar panel's lifespan, there's nothing that can be done to like remedy or reclaim the fact that all these toxic chemicals are involved in the creation of solar panels. And I was wondering if there's any truth to that and what solar panels are made of.
Well, it's an interesting question. And yes, and a lot of the companies now are guaranteeing their panels to take them back when they're used. There is on most solar panels, there's 25-year warranty. And after 25 years, they'll take them back, recover what elements there are in it, and hopefully be able to reuse the components in the panels. Copper, glass, aluminum. Some of the panels now are amorphous and they don't even have glass and aluminum in it. It is a challenge. Batteries are also a challenge. What's in the batteries, and there's some movement now because lithium is not readily available. And most of the batteries being built for electric cars or for other uses are lithium ion. And like one of the slides I showed was a movement by Westinghouse trying to find replacements. There's also some movement now to what have been gel cell lithium ion batteries. And now there's a movement to what is referred to as a solid state battery that will last twice as long, at least twice as long, and have twice the power and charge faster. Now, the Tesla charge, you can get 200 miles in about 15 minutes when you recharge your batteries at a supercharger, Tesla supercharger. But it's a good question, and it is being addressed and concerned. Cameron?
I just wonder, just adding, it's a really good concern, and it pops up for a lot of people, but when you look at a lifetime analysis of the energy that you've pulled out of that solar panel versus if we got it from like a carbon intensive source, like a, God forbid, a coal powered, power plant, it's still, like, even if we're moving that directly to a landfill afterwards, we still have a far smaller impact on the environment using solar energy. But all of those materials in the solar panels are expensive, and market forces eventually create a demand so high that we figure out how to extract all of those things back out from it, because we find it in higher concentrations in landfills or in large deposits of those solar panels than we do in natural environments. So it's easier for us to mine those materials from our landfill than it is from brand new mines eventually.
So an average, like an automotive battery has an average lifespan of 3 years. What's the batteries that you're using for the solar systems?
Most are lead acid batteries, and they're known for a short life. rechargeable. They have to be attended to by the liquid, by adding distilled water to them. The family of batteries that are coming on now are totally sealed. There's nothing that will leak out, at least not under normal situations. There was an incident on the highway where a semi-truck and carrying batteries collided somehow, and the batteries ignited, but that's a rare occasion.
And how long did they last, the new batteries versus the...
The new batteries right now, lithium ion, are 10 years on the warranty, and they are expected to go longer than that. But we really don't. I think the main thing of concern is the people that are concerned about the environment, including solar and clean energy and getting rid of carbon dioxide contamination, trash, garbage, whatever you want to call it, are concerned, genuinely concerned about the environment. You wouldn't find a group of people probably that are less, that they are more concerned than the people. And it was apparent in that Renewable Energy Expo that I just attended. I think, so to speak, we're in good hands. I think the people want to do the right thing.
Now, do we know if the University of Arkansas Engineering School and the construction management programs are promoting clean energy and sustainable building? Do we know that?
I would say yes.
You would say yes?
I mean, as a general statement, yes, sustainability is a principle that anyone that works there is informed of. And then as far as like engineering, I mean, the programs that they're starting on, I'm just a lowly employee, but I happen to work a lot with the engineering department.
That's good.
And so, yes, there are sustainability programs and all of that, I imagine, you know, especially with the School of Architecture combined, you'll probably see a lot of much more sustainable construction.
You know, that would be a neat program for the library here to get the engineering school and the architecture school to do one on what they're doing.
Right.
Let's think about that.
Eric Bowles, who is several people know him. How many people know Eric Bowles? He is the Director of Sustainability for the University of Arkansas. I've talked to him. One of my goals is to have every student that graduates, I don't care what curriculum, that graduates from the University of Arkansas to have had one course, maybe 3-hour credit, in sustainability. I was talking to a couple, and their daughter was there listening in. She just graduated in political science. She didn't want to tell me what she graduated in because her parents were building a highly efficient solar electric, what we call net zero plus home, and she didn't even want to tell me. I said, well, what are you? You know, it's a good conversation. What is inhibiting you? She says, well, I don't want to tell you what I graduated in because it has nothing to do with what my mom and dad are doing. And I said, what is the curriculum? You prompted her again. And she says, political science. I said, oh my goodness, that's what it's all about, isn't it, Caitlin? Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's all about political science. This so much is handled. But my goal is for every student to graduate with a course. Architecture, engineering, political science, business. Michelle is teaching in the business school. I know from her and my experience and relating to her over many years that she's getting the plugs in somehow that the future for these business schools and the Walton School of Business has something to do with sustainability and climate. Isn't that right?
Yeah, the entire textbook for business foundations is built on sustainability and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So it's embedded in the course, right? It's unavoidable. Yeah, students couldn't avoid it if they wanted to.
Other questions? Did we answer your concerns there.
Well, I have another question.
We're good.
I also recently read that Exxon is currently being sued because they were lying to the public for decades about plastic being recyclable. And like that's happening right now. And I was wondering if there's like if that is actually happening or if it's just more stuff, salacious stuff in the news. Because we've been talking about it for a long time. And why, if that is true, why are cities like having entire like recycling programs pretending like and paying all this money for these bins and all these stickers about recycling if it is fake? Like where's all of our plastic been going for the last 2 decades?
Well, for many years, I've heard of recyclable plastics and different plastics that they don't get cluttering the oceans and our landfills. And the landfills, the recycling, people don't want it for whatever reason. So it's filling up the landfills, and now the landfills, the people doing the recycling don't want it. So they send it to the landfill. So.
I know you can upcycle plastics, but not after they've started decomposing with sunlight. You can do all kinds of things. And if like those programs that actually do make sense and are real can be instated instead of fake programs. That's what I want to know. Like, does anybody know about what's been going on?
I think it's more of my understanding is basically an infrastructure problem, like the sorting and maintaining that process of recycling all just the vast volumes of it. So I think there have been some bad actors. I don't think it's as much of a scam as maybe you're thinking it is.
And that's why they're being sued.
Right. Like in other words, I don't think cities are setting up recycling programs as a political pawn. I think what happens is they lack infrastructure at the end of that line. It has to go somewhere and it gets shipped to like China or somewhere else.
Now they reject it.
There's a point of clarity there because we're talking about two different things. You're mentioning the lawsuit, and the lawsuit is against Exxon for telling people that for trying to give people the idea that all plastics are recyclable and therefore we don't have to worry about producing them.
Yeah.
But you're also talking about city recycling projects and things, and so it's very very separate people, entities, organizations, things like that. Most of our 1s and 2s are not most, like 35% of our 1s and 2s are recycled. That actually happens. Most of the other plastics end up in a landfill or incinerated or something like that. And a lot of times there are markets that maybe shouldn't have recycling programs because they don't have markets where they can sell those products, but the people in that region demand recycling and they don't understand the context that needs to be around it. And so sometimes the residents of the city will say, I need a recycling program right now, but the city doesn't have anywhere to send it. So the city does it, but it ends up going to the landfill.
But also if the city is equally being lied to by Exxon and being made to believe that this is recyclable, that's what so it's real, they are being sued.
State of California is suing Exxon.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Attorney General for the state of California.
Yeah.
They're
But
leading the charge.
the cities are the ones who know where they're selling that material to. So I don't think that they're susceptible to the lie that we're talking about in that lawsuit. It's really just it was trying to take the guilt off of the consumer that I can buy this plastic water bottle and I'm not killing the environment because I know it because it can be recycled. But it's highly unlikely that number 7 juice box really is.
Because now people
But
are
the city of Fayetteville is doing curbside, and they only take 1s and 2s, which are the ones that most likely can be
It's the
recycled.
only
All
one.
the other stuff, all these other places I visit my kids in other cities, and they just throw it all in a thing, and it goes to a sorter, and most of it's in the trash, because it cannot, it's financially not profitable to recycle.
So the question is, are you wasting your time recycling, right? Are you wasting your time sorting this? Is it do you feel
Well, no, because I already knew that it was this isn't, I knew that some of these plastics were recyclable. And I was wondering why we pretend.
Yeah.
Why there's still all these bins
Well,
and
Fayetteville
all
does,
these efforts.
because if it's not recycled, they leave it in your bin.
I was
You
gonna say,
get to throw it in the trash.
I live in the sticks, so I have to do I have to take the initiative for
Yeah. trying to find that number.
It's like drive across town, like drive to another county, like something. So I'm in that same boat. I've had the same thought.
So
I'm
my-
wasting my time here.
Well, so I do not wish to waste my time, and I do feel hopeful, but I also know that there are people who are like devoting so much of their lives to cleaning up oceans and waterways of our plastics. So there's like all of this, direct action that people are having to take to counter what these companies are doing. And so there's like no pretending. Like, this is a huge problem. No matter if you believe in global warming or not, like the oceans are being choked and like all of these like sea creatures are dying because of our plastic waste. And there are all these people who care. So why are they allowed to continue lying when we all kind of know that they're lying?
That's what they're trying to stop by making them pay.
There's a little bit of nuance there too. The waterways, the plastics that are pulling out of the waterways in the ocean, a very small amount of that is from consumer waste. The solids are mostly from fishing, and the microplastics are mostly from paint. So it's not like your plastic water bottle is what's choking out
What
the.
about the islands, the plastic islands that have now kind of been cleaned up?
Those
Were
are
much-
actually the garbage patches are actually much more like healthy ocean environments than many of the shorelines. The shorelines
Because of all
have
the
just
boats.
choked solid. A lot of the pictures of the Pacific garbage patch are actually shorelines off of Honduras.
I'd like to, we talked about recycling. In the nuclear industry, we've spent uranium, is storage of it, what are we going to do with it, and so forth. How many are familiar with what Bill Gates is doing in what's called Terra Power?
Where they're buying up huge chunks of land for like the reclamation.
It's a new, highly programmed artificial intelligence trying to figure out all the problems related to nuclear. Nuclear is a carbon-free power. But when you follow along with it, what they're doing in Montana, and they've been working on this for 10 or 12 years, and I've followed along with different ones. And when I think about planting trees versus trying to spend, he himself has spent over $1 billion himself, and he's gotten grants from all kinds of places. How many trees and much recycling of household things and business things can we do? Or emphasis from Walmart, for example, on demanding that vendors not package in things that can't be recycled. But when I look at the economics of it, and nuclear, and all the negative concerns from different terrible nuclear explosions, or whatever you want to call it, it just makes sense that there's a more basic way to power our Earth. And it might require a little bit of compromise, but Mary and I know, my wife here, Mary, Michelle, so forth, even your diet makes a difference. So the cattle graze under solar panels, but cattle are still belching and farting incredible amounts of methane, and methane is not nearly as stable as this molecule of carbon dioxide, but methane is a major source of it. We enjoy our food more. It tastes better, and we enjoy the meal and know that we're eating healthy. We're both in our 80s. We attribute that to eating well, exercise, but it's part of what I think is valuable in life.
You make vegan look good, Orlo.
Yeah,
But-
you do.
You make vegan look good.
Yeah.
We have a bowl of ice cream every once in a while. Anyway, it's part of enjoying life. But there are things that you could do, and believe you me, if you live it, like we at home, we enjoy driving past every filling station, and we enjoy not paying a utility bill. Zero. We charge our cars with sunshine. And that's such a satisfaction. It just makes you feel good. And that's a satisfaction that I hope can be contagious, more contagious than it's been. I think that's an objective for all of us. Share it with your friends, your family. And our family is continuing with some of the things that we've done, raising them this way. So it's part of a good life. Any other comments or questions? Peggy worked for us for many years. Peggy's environmental, she's active in the Ozark Society. Yeah. And so thank you for coming. I think we're just about on time. Thank you. Thank you for Kelly and your assistance in getting us going and reserving it. These rooms have to be reserved months and months in advance.